Duperos y Duperas, welcome to the 2-for-1 week of Dupe by the River, the second episode of the week, as we are going to be looking back at Wednesday night's matchup down in South Florida as the Union took care of business against Inter Miami. We're also going to be looking ahead at this upcoming weekend, a big showdown down at the Soup. Union, Revs, we're going to talk about it. Don't you dare go anywhere, guys, because you do not want to miss this episode of Dupe by the River. And let's get it started, guys.
Dupe by the River
doesn't do anything well. There is not one.
I'm sorry. There was no creativity.
As a Union fan, I take that all day.
Another DP. We need to go get Mario Balotelli. And that is right. Welcome, everyone, to Dupe by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union. And, of course, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Network. Before we dive into today's episode of Dupe by the River, real quick, if you're watching this live, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning on in. Please make sure you guys hit the like button. That would truly mean the world to us. And never miss out on any of these live viewings of Dupe by the River. So make sure you guys are subscribed to El Parcero Philly's YouTube channel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today, without further ado, joining me in his expertise in duping, please welcome Justin Paxton, spin cycle instructor, Freiburg. Justin, what's happening, baby?
Not much, 2 pods in 1 week. Always love the time crunch. Always love the the having to turn from one game straight to the next. And it's honestly it's gonna be a fun game to review. And I always love dealing with the Boston Crafts. I mean, the Revolution.
Absolutely, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Justin, listen. The Union have no excuse but to get 6 points this week, so we have to do our work as well, man. Duty calls, Justin.
Exactly. We step up. We sacrifice so that our listeners can enjoy more of us.
We're like Ali Bedoya, man. We'll play 90 minutes even at the age that we're at.
Exactly. We'll be just as sore.
Absolutely, man. Listen, we got a lot to talk about. There's some couple of sidetrack things I wanted to run by you. Number one, did you see the little bit of? It was kind of a promo, a little comedy sketch by the young TikToker Say Burn. I'm sorry. What'd you think about that? Did you see it? First off, did you see it?
I think I saw it. It kind of come around my feed, and I mean, listen, he's like, it is what it is with this guy. It's me. I'm not much on TikTok and all that. I joke that one of the the people I know, the young people I know, Kyle the baby here on Twitter, he's kind of my go-to to, like, I feel like, keep relevant with some of this stuff. And I met Saburn at one of the last tailgates, just because I have a friend who does some digital media work for the team, and I had to kind of help out with some stuff. And he's not a bad guy. It's not my cup of tea, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. Like, someone out there finds that hilarious.
It's funny because during the pandemic, I started to do some TikTok content that kind of revolved around the little Delco accent. Living here for so long, Justin, I could just pick it up. And it did work. Like, it actually, it did run up some good numbers for myself, but there is a crowd for it. I just don't know if Union and soccer fans in Philadelphia are exactly that crowd. I personally think he's hilarious. I've been following him since 2020. I love the way he's grown. He's really turned into a little bit of a local star, and kudos to him. I just don't know if we are the right crowd for him. And I was curious because it was interesting the amount. Like, if you look at the comments, and no one really cared for it. And I was just like, well, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't his best work. I've seen really good work from him. It wasn't his best work, but the crap that he got was interesting. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. It was definitely.
I think people are always gonna shit on this type of thing for the team, like, doing it. Like, I talked to my friend, and he said, the team, teams are absolutely going to want to hop in on the big TikTokers, the trends,
influencers too, man.
Exactly. Like, it's not like, oh, they'll do anything to get in there. It's like it's a local guy that's getting fairly big, like for a local guy, and it's like, you know what? It's like any marketing is good marketing, whether you
Right.
like it or not. You're getting the clicks, you're getting the views. At the end of the day, that's kind of what the social media team wants. Like you can
Yeah.
complain all you want to, oh, this is like you watched it, didn't you? Like you can complain all you want and you can say all these comments, and at the end of the day, it's, you know what? It's just any PR is good PR at this point. And I mean, we've listen, we you know, I've been around this team since the beginning. I've seen the social media stuff at the beginning was pretty poor. Hell, we had the trash truck incident that, you know, we all know. If you've ever seen a Republic
Yeah,
trash
man.
truck, that will, you know, elicit a memory of one of the worst marketing campaigns at a time the team was not going through a great spell. So if I was gonna, you know, choose between a trash truck and influencer who kind of looks like Johnny Mac and has the Delco accent, like I think I'll take that guy.
Yo, Delco rules. Delco rules. Speaking of the old school days, how about our boy Trusty Justin? Getting a little bit of it was a loan spell with Birmingham. Is that what I read
Yeah,
correctly?
I mean, listen, listen, you knew that was going to happen from the start, and it as our buddy Steve, we were joking with our buddy Steve. You know, it's just like he was a big, you know, city supporter, and it's just like, what do you think? And he's like, well, it can't hurt our defense. Like, you know, like they were competitive for the promotion push, and then they kind of fell off. So I think Trusty could absolutely help solidify a defense like that. So I think it's a solid move, and he's going to get plenty of time.
What's this I hear he's playing out wide? He started this in Colorado?
Mate, well, he played. I think Colorado was doing a bit of a back three for a while,
Okay.
so he definitely could be one of the outside center backs, which I think is
Okay.
I think it's just better because he has a decent passing range. And
Yeah.
he's got that athleticism, so I think that kind of is where he excels. So
Yeah, I remember
I think
that
a
good
back
page.
three would actually work pretty well from him if that's what Birmingham is planning on running.
That's gonna be interesting to see, man. Yeah, I definitely love seeing all of that. Are you worried at all of what's going on? Well, I shouldn't say worried because I mean this team's kind of in dead last place essentially, but DC's making some moves. Any thoughts on that, man? Possibly Jesse Lynn's, or they're looking at the Derby County number 10, possibly.
I don't know about the Jesse Lingard one because, like, I mean I guess it's
The
because of
great
the
Pablo Mara reported it,
oh
Justin.
no, trust me. If Pablo was tweeting it, there obviously is some level of truth to it. I think a lot of that probably has to do with Rooney, if you're being honest. But yeah, the Ravel Morrison one was kind of interesting because if you are a you know, a fan of the Prem and you are more than a casual viewer, you will know the name Ravel Morrison and know what he could have been and was at kind of at one point. Yeah, he was a pretty dynamic player for a while, for a little bit, and injuries have kind of hurt his career. He was starting to get some good spells with Birmingham, with Derby. I mean, Derby kind of helped his career in terms of making him a legitimate, you know, somewhat of a legitimate contender again. Now, there's reports that people thought it was going to be a DP signing. It's like, well, he's not really DP. And then Stephen Goff of the Washington Post clarified and said it's a TAM level deal, which I think makes a lot more sense. Um, Listen, I don't think these players are going to help DC make the playoffs this year. I don't think it's about this year at all. I think you're trying to build around Taxi Francis and see what you have. And I think, if anything, you're building for next season.
I do
And I think
concur
they
with
could have
all.
the potential to get back, but it's going to take a lot because there's a lot of rot in that DC lineup. I mean, they just had Brad Smith go down with an ACL tear,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of players that just you're like wondering what are they still like, what are they actually doing in, like, where do they fit in this team. And I don't know. I think this year is going to be kind of if we can get close to the playoffs, do it. If not, like, let's just not make this any worse than it is right now.
Yeah, man, it'll be interesting to see. Could Wayne Rooney make another late push for DC and get him back into the playoffs as a manager this time? It'll be interesting to see. But let's talk about our match yesterday. And before we dive into the Inter Miami match, Justin, before the match, the Union dropped a bomb on us and triggered the purchase option for Julian Carranza, and what was another swift, great move by Ernst Tanner, a 500,000 purchase option for. Look, I don't want to think too far ahead, but possibly a top 5 striker in this league. But listen, he's been playing really well for this team, and you heard Jim raising the praise for him, and he triggered it. And dude, perfect timing, huh, Justin?
Yeah, it was weird. Like we talked. I shared the article from Jonathan Tannenwald of the Inquirer, where that quote from Jim said that the clause actually would have been triggered if he had gotten 15 goals and combined 15 goals assists, which at this point would have been triggered by the end of the season. I think doing it now was a good piece of business again for a guy who. I think the $6 million price tag at a time when Miami didn't really know what they wanted and were just kind of throwing money at the wall and seeing what worked. I mean, for all the stuff people said, oh, Carranza just wasn't playing well and getting hurt. It's like he was also being played out of position. I mean, I'm seeing the same thing with Robbie Robinson. Like I'm seeing identical situations. And you look at Carranza and Lewis Morgan, 2 players who got out, who were unfortunate casualties and got out and have been doing much better since they left Miami. Carranza has, as Jim has said, he's compared him to Tati, and I kind of see it. Like, if you look at what Carranza does, you look at comparing him to Tati's game, I think they're pretty identical. They both drop deep. They're both willing to connect with the 10s. They will get in the gritty, dirty areas. They will fight for every yard on the field. They will make those runs, those near post runs, get in the dirty areas, get those scrappy goals, and work their ass off to really help the team. Even if they don't get a goal, if they get an assist, or if they just help start a play and don't get anything, like their contributions are more than just the stats. And I think at the trajectory that Carranza is going, I easily think that he has the potential to be one of the best strikers that the Union have had ever. And I am not hyperbolizing. I truly think at the rate he's going, he could be the best striker the Union have ever had.
Yeah, put some respect on Andrew Vuton's name, all right?
I needed a good chuckle.
The one thing that's not similar with Carranza and Castellanos is that I don't know. Like, I don't know if an opposing team, like, does Carranza piss you off in the same way that Tati does? Dude, but I hate Tati. That's because he's not on my team. And Carranza's like he's just really good. He's just not an asshole like Tati.
I think though that, like, I don't think you need to be an asshole to get under a team's skin. Like, what Carranza does is the physical work, the chippiness. He will battle and battle and battle, and that's when like he got fouled a few times against Miami. And it's just like they were kind of unnecessary fouls. Like, he's just holding off, and it's just when it's like, okay, towards the end of the game, I was like, you're just killing more time if you're flat. Like, it's like, well, this is unnecessary. But hey, Carranza schooled in the Philly shithousery dark arts, and I'm here for it.
Dude, who would have thought a number 9 from Argentina, from Banfield, that could be the most Philly striker we've ever had, man?
would be the biggest shithouser on this team. Like, I love it. Just give me more of that just pure that pure just grit, that ugly, dirty play that people are like, oh, that's not soccer. It's like, no, this is exactly the type of shithouse soccer that can get you places.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Well, Justin, let's get to the match at hand. So obviously Wednesday night, well, not prime time, but prime time for Miami for Miami soccer.
Yeah, why was it an 8 p.m. game? I'm legitimately curious. Like, it made no sense. I'm like, oh, I'll rush home. Like, I'll go for my walk, have a quick dinner, and I'm like, oh wait, I don't have to rush this game. It's not till 8 o'clock. I'm like, what the hell?
They're on Miami time, and everything is laid
Yeah,
back.
things will move a little slower down in retirement land.
You should you should have seen the playoff game between the Sixers and the Heat. I mean, Heat fans are showing up at halftime thinking it's the first quarter. So that's how it works down there, Justin. But it was a hot one, and for the Union, like we mentioned, Carranza, the option was picked up, but he did not start in this match. And for Jim, he was planning for this match Friday. So the process, the plan was Burke was going to start regardless. So we got Burke at the starting alongside Uwa. The only other changes was Mbaizo started instead of Nathan Harrier, which was interesting. We'll get to that in a second. But also Stuart Finley started for Elliott. I was not aware of this until I think yesterday morning that Jack Elliott picked up a knock. So Stuart Finley started, and so not only did he start he's not only did he start yesterday, but he's also be starting on Saturday, which is really cool because obviously we do know Stewart's going to be leaving, and so in this match, I mean, the Union kind of right off the jump kind of showed what this game was going to be. It was some really good possession as well. The attack was just looking really fluid. It had some good opportunities. In the 26th minute, Ua was able to get himself attract a penalty kick, and that's when Daniel Gazdag was able to just with conviction knock this bad boy in. In the second half, though, Miami definitely picked it up a little bit. Miami started picking up at the end of the first half, but in the second half, they picked it up as well, had some good opportunities. They did a good job of shutting them down. Corey Burke off his beautiful set piece free kick from Kai Wagner, puts it in a perfect spot, and Burke battled for that ball and got a nice little head in it, kind of deflected off of Calendar's hands, and that would get the 2-0 lead there for the Union. However, Gonzalo Higuain, who, a lot of speculation, but this could be the last time we face off against Gonzalo Higuain in a Miami shirt. He leaves a lasting imagery for Union fans. Obviously, we all know that the Philadelphia Union are the most hated club for Gonzalo Higuain. And listen, I got to give credit. It was a beautiful goal. He puts Jakob Glesnes kind of on a little bit of a mini blender, I'll say. And a great shot from outside the box. And not much Andre Blake's going to do there. But like Jim says, you're not going to really kill the team for a world-class goal that Higuain scored in his stage of his career. But the most important part, Justin, the Union walked away Miami with 3 points. Dude, it was hot as all hell. I think 10 minutes into this match, I'm looking at Mikel Uwa off of a dead ball situation. The camera's on him. My man's got the tongues out. The hands are on the side of the body. You could just tell what kind of night it is. Those water breaks, dude, super clutch as well, man.
Jim was screaming for the water break in the first half. The ref wasn't going to. Like they I think it was like the 33rd, 34th minute, but they actually gave it. It's like, and Jim's screaming at the fourth official, and the ref wasn't even paying attention. The fourth official was like trying to yeah, it's like, dude, it's 85, but it feels like it's over 90. Yeah. Like that's what Miami does, or sorry, Fort Lauderdale does.
Get it right, Justin. Fort Lauderdale. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. Justin, I really felt like, look, the stats or I'm sorry, the scoreboard probably won't tell you, but this attack still looked really fluid. Not as fluid. The difference with DC was just everything was clicking, and goals were just falling at will in that match. But the attack was still fluid. It had some really good shots, and I overall I thought this attack looked pretty damn good, especially Corey Burke.
Yeah, I said it in our preview that the DC game could be the moment that unlocks this attack. And we knew you're not gonna put up 7 most games. Hell, you weren't even gonna put up 4 against Miami. But what that DC game did was allows the team to do what they do best, which is play that north-south soccer, but also possess the ball. And I think that's what Jim is starting to realize, is that you can still kind of play a counterattacking style, but also possess the ball a little more, be more selective, some of the best moments were the midfield would just be wide open, and you'd have a pass that at a little bit of possession for Gazdag, and then Corey Burke and Mikhail Uwa were both getting in behind. Corey Burke, I thought, had a great game, which I haven't been saying much this season because it's been a struggle for him. And I think now that he is the de facto backup, he's the guy that they're going to rely on to give Carranza and Uwa a bit of a rest. And this team is finally starting to see that the front three are finally unlocking themselves. They're finally pushing, creating these chances, allowing the entire team to get in on it. And I mean, we've talked about, like why did Bizo get the start? And it's like, I think in a game like this against Miami, I mean, you saw Bizo was playing centrally a lot, and Ali was swinging out wide, and Bizo was swinging the ball up. And I think that was one thing that he brings is going forward is he was breaking down the Miami defense with these give and goes, and Miami was struggling to keep up. I mean, they subbed off Mabika at halftime because it was clear that this team was struggling to keep up. And I think, the scoreline only says 2-1, but I think between the two games, I actually think this was the better attacking game for the Union because it was a more consistent effort against I'd say a much stronger side.
Yeah. You know what's funny, Justin? I can't believe Corey has lasted this long. He's been essentially like within the Union, I guess organization, whatever you want to call it, since 2016. He was on loan from Rivoli United to Bethlehem still, and he's still kicking, man. He's still here at 30 years old.
I think we've given him a lot of shit. Like I said, he's had, obviously he had the spell where he had some visa issues, and he's had some moments where he's been the guy. And I think that's kind of how, I think it shows his longevity is that he's always willing to bounce back. That, I think Jim understands. I think if he was an issue on the field or in the locker room, I think Jim would have addressed it a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's why Jamiro is gone. I think it's quite as good of a player it can be. If they are a locker room problem, they will not last long in this on this team. And I think it just goes to show that he still can provide you a threat, even if, like I said, and he doesn't have to be the guy. If he, like I said at the beginning of the season, if he can contribute between 5 to 10 goals as a off the bench every other time Carranza or Ua get breaks, I think that absolutely helped because Carranza is getting close to 10 goals, and Ua now is up around 5 or 6. And Gazdag has said, the offense is starting to flow. The goals are starting to come up, and it's clear that this team, as much as we joke, it still helps to have a guy like Corey, which is why Sergio was made expendable, because between the two of them, Corey was the more consistent player. Even as inconsistent as he can be, there was slightly more consistency than Sergio was giving us.
Yeah, and this, I always talk about this with all the fan bases because I feel like sometimes we kind of lack the awareness of the expectations for some of these players. And when it comes to Corey Burke, Corey Burke is not a world beater. He's not going to be scoring cracking goals, but there are attributes that Corey brings to the table that are still very important, especially what we do. I mean, the dude's a 6'4" guy who runs like a legit gazelle. He's got that long stride. He's really fast. And when it comes to the high press, dude, he's really big on that. He's really effective on the counter. That one play last night where I believe it was Corey who stole the ball. And you saw this great run of play with Gazag, Ua, and then Corey Burke wound up taking the shot from outside the box. There are things that Corey can do that can really help you. And I just think that we still understand the expectations of some of these players.
Yeah, I think it's weird. Like you look at Corey, and you would not expect him to be that fast. It's those long strides. I mean, in the press, there were moments he was forcing Calendar into some horrible shanks that were leading to throw-ins, that were leading to chances. Like he was pressing, he was giving it an insanely good effort, and I absolutely think that this kind of a game tells Jim that he doesn't have to feel bad about subbing Mikael Ua off after 60 or
Yes, sir.
65, that he can rest Carranza if he wants to. And I think that gives you a lot more flexibility and a rested and in form, all three strikers. If you have all three of Burke, Ua, and Carranza
Play
rested and
Quinn
ready to
Sullivan up
go,
top.
like, and then you have Paxton, you have Quinn. I mean, Paxton last night, holy shit! There was that one sequence where
Did he make someone?
he dribbled through like the entire midfield, brought it up, and only got dispossessed because there were like 3 additional players that came in and stole the ball off him. And it's like, you know what? Like it just goes to show that if this team, I think is finally, like we talked about all the growing pains. I think this team is finally starting to hit its stride. And if that is the case, I would if I'm the rest of the East, I would absolutely be worried, because the one thing going into this season that people had legitimate concerns about is, where will the scoring come from? And if the scoring can get going from your attacking players, the Union are going to be a dangerous team. And right now, the Union are starting to really get it going, and that should be a concern for the rest of the Eastern Conference.
All right, one more question before we move on to New England. The right back position. This was a really solid performance by Olivier. For you, what do you do with this position going forward? Are you doing a little bit of a little platoon action? You going Harriel? You going Mbizo?
I think it's still Nate's position. I don't think this changes anything. I think the reason, if you look at the games that Jim has been giving Olivier midweek games, I think that makes sense. I think giving Nate some rest is not a bad thing at all. And looking at Miami, and that's why I agreed with Zach that I didn't think it was crazy that Bizo could get the start, because Bizo had actually a more solid defensive performance than I've seen from him, over the past season. But I think a team like Miami, you didn't need someone who obviously you can't have someone who is a defensive liability, but you could throw someone on who had a lot more to give attack on the attacking side. And if you looked at a lot of what Olivier did, there were times he was cutting into the middle and Ali was bringing out wide, and he was doing these give and goes, and he was up and down the field. He was an absolute threat all night for the Miami back line. And I think that just goes to show, like, this is what you can do with a team that you can exploit like this. I don't know if that's, obviously, with some of the better teams, that's not going to be the case. But I do think it gives Jim, again, more tactical flexibility, the ability to rest players. You could see a platoon, but I still think this is Nate's position for sure.
I agree. We always like to stir up the pot here. You know how we do. But we'll see what happens. But Justin, listen. Last night was definitely good because, like we talk about, this team has yet to kind of get in a rhythm since the beginning of the year, and I really do feel like it's slowly starting to happen. And we can only hope. But Justin, Saturday, it's gonna be pretty damn big. We're gonna be at the Sub, Saturday Night Lights, with the New England Revolution. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And as always, we want to welcome back our dear friend, our New England Revolution core. Please, ladies and gentlemen, from the musket, please welcome Sam. And welcome on back, brother. How you feeling?
I'm doing good. Things are pretty okay in Revsland, so especially excited for what should be a fun matchup on Saturday.
dude. I cannot wait, man. It's funny because, as you know, the MLS has been doing their whole Heineken rivalry week stuff. And I'm sure you saw last week they actually put DC and Philly with El Tráfico, with the Texas Derby, with the Sunshine Derby. We're sitting here like DC. But it's really obviously brought a lot of topic conversation. A lot of Union fans feel right now NYCFC is our main rival. But dude, I'm not shying away against New England, man. The bad blood's been coming up with us too, and I already heard Bruce Arena's rumblings after the NYCFC match. So how's the fan base feeling right now with this matchup coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. That New York City FC match was definitely interesting to say the least. But I think people are excited. Obviously, I know it's a classic T-shirt that the MLS put out, the Liberty rivalry, and obviously with everything with Henry Kessler, time wasting, and
Yeah, man.
and Kasper Shabilko possibly throwing a social media assistant's phone. So there's plenty of bad blood there. So it should be an interesting one for sure. And especially with how the Revolution are kind of a new look Revolution, especially compared to the beginning of the year.
Okay. Well, first off, have you guys played Chicago yet?
I don't believe. I think we're playing them later in the season, but we also could have played them early in the season.
All right.
It's been a long season.
Casper can answer to that when you guys play Chicago. But so that's a good point. So what's been new? What's this new look Revs your team you're talking about? Explain.
Yeah, so for sure, obviously Matt Turner, now at Arsenal. So we have George Petrovic now in net, and so far he's been pretty impressive. Obviously, it's hard to replace Matt Turner, but even Turner himself said that when Turner was Petrovic's age, he wasn't as good as he was. So there's a lot of hype around Petrovic. He's kind of lived up to that hype so far. Bruce Arena has been very complimentary of him, and then also too, New England acquired Dylan Barrero, Colombian from Atletico Mineiro in Brazil, and he's been doing pretty good so far. Kind of been that Tejan Buchanan replacement. Obviously, they're a bit different players, and Tejan's are already in Belgium, but he brings that speed, he brings that dynamic ability, and he's been a real asset so far, being able to score goals and just bring life to this offense. And obviously, too, I don't think he'll be here on Saturday. I believe he's arriving tomorrow officially because his visa was approved. Okay. Giancarlo Veroni, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but it's Italian Albanian striker, played at Juve, recently tore it up in Austria. I think he scored like 18 goals, 3 assists. So he's going to be the Adam Boucher replacement. So you have all these guys coming out, and the Revolution are kind of coming in and saying, hey, we're going to replace these guys right away so we can win as much as possible. So it's definitely a new thing for the Revolution. Even Bruce Arena said it himself, but plenty of new faces there.
Dude, that's such a great I've always said one thing I would love Ernst to do. I'm not one of these guys who says oh, you need to go get Balotelli, Lewandowski. I would love to get some of these young kids who can't get minutes at Dortmund, München, Juventus, those kids who get that grade A training from those academies, and bring them over here, give them the minutes that they need and continue their development. Obviously, we're doing something here. So I think that's a great signing. For New England should be interesting. So what's going on with your fullback position? Are you guys not buying in on Jones and who's the you guys had Jones and Bye, right?
Jones and Bye.
So is it just more of a depth piece for you guys?
Yeah, so he's just Veroni's a striker.
Right.
Yeah, but if when it comes to the back line, it's kind of status quo. Obviously, you have Andrew Farrell and Henry Kessler. Right. Those are kind of the starting. Obviously, Farrell will not be there because of the red card he picked up against NYCFC. But it seems to be, again, status quo. DeJuan Jones and Brandon Bye, they've had pretty solid seasons. Both have been great attacking. When it comes to the Revolution, the only problem has been, the back line has had issues, whether it be man marking or just ball watching or just not defending well. What can be a problem. So, they're great on the attack, but when it comes to, defending, it can be an issue. But they have a guy like Petrovic who can step up and make those saves. So they've been lucky a few times. But also, whether it be the NYCFC game or also they recently played FC Cincy, you've seen that the back line could definitely use some work. But right now, Bruce Arena and the Revolution, they're focused on getting that striker, getting the midfield, and kind of boosting the attack.
So are you saying that that our double agent Omar Gonzalez is gonna get the start? Because if so, I am excited.
I got some bad news for you. He probably will not start. I mean,
Oh,
you might get the one and only John Bell of the announced John Bell movement. If I had to guess, it would probably be him, just simply because Omar has not been up to par. So John Bell has been serviceable, at least at the minimum. So I think you'll have the young guys, Bell and Kessler, probably starting at center back, and maybe get a bench a second half Omar performance. So if you're up like 3 goals, you might have a chance if he comes in.
I mean, it doesn't help when you gift a goal to Mikhail Uwa, who had
it's a great
just
assist.
stepped on the field, if I remember that game correctly. And I wasn't even watching that game. I think I was down the shore, and I looked and just went, "Oh!" And my friend just goes, "Oh, Uwa scored a goal." And I look, I'm like, "Okay, what is Omar Gonzalez doing?" And I'm like, "Okay, that's the reason why I don't like that man."
Oh, trust me, you're with a lot of Revolution fans. I remember too. There was like an NYCFC writer who, for some reason, was going after Matt Turner. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was Matt Turner's fault." I'm like, "I'm sorry, that was clearly Big Omar's fault, just passing the ball right to Ura." But yeah, Omar has. I would say Omar, Josie, they really haven't lived up to the expectations because obviously they're Bruce's guys, veterans. You're expecting them to, be those guys who can come off the bench and make an impact. And so far, those guys haven't. I'll give credit to Sebastian Lletget. He's been a bit better, but has had some bumps along the way as well as some injuries. But Bruce's guys who he brought in haven't exactly been great so far.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the. I mean, that's kind of the whole reason that the U.S. didn't make the World Cup in 2018 because Bruce had his guys. But I think the real question is, has Becky G made ingratiated herself to the Revolution faithful? I know that was a big get. Listen, Leget's nice and all, but you got Becky G. You got a big time superstar there.
Yeah, for sure. She's definitely, showed up to some games. I will say, as someone who listens to sports talk radio, she has definitely cashed in with the amount of Xfinity ads I've heard. But I haven't
I've
like.
heard those ads too. So
Oh
trust me,
yeah. Oh, I
those are
feel you.
is
everywhere.
she
Yo.
making appearances on sports radio too?
Oh no.
Oh,
It's
okay,
just ads.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, those ads are blowing up everywhere. Even on like
Yeah, the
Spotify,
Xfinity
I'll be
ones.
like, I'm like, why am I hearing Becky G? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's the Xfinity ad.
Yeah, but we need to get her on the field. But she's definitely out in the boxes. She'll the pregame walk-in. You'll see her with Sebastian. So she's made herself known around here.
I like that. I like that. All right, Sam. So look, not like a little tweak has changed since we last played. Last 2 matches for the Union, we've noticed that the possession, like, yeah, I said possession, and the Union has definitely been improved upon. If you look, we won the battle against DC, which it's not very hard to do, but I think that for us, we've always talked about how we know this team is really good at the high press. We know that they can create turnovers, and we know that they can go on counterattacks. They got the speed for it, but there have been times where that's the only thing they kind of relied on, and you just can't keep relying on that. We've had that possession going. So, how do you anticipate New England trying to kind of combat this new style? Well, not new, but this, the Union with their possession now.
Yeah, it's honestly, I would say, kind of perfect for the Revolution because as soon as they've gotten Dylan Barrero, you've noticed that they've been able to go out on the counterattack and really, be effective. Barrero's a very fast guy, but obviously you have Gustavo Bo, who isn't exactly the fastest man in MLS, and Carlos Gil, he's pretty quick, but still, I would say defenders are kind of able to catch up to him. But they just have this ability, whether it be DeJuan Jones or even Carlos Gil, just being able to find Barrero on the wing, and just turning a turnover, going all the way up the field. So in a funny turn of things, the Revolution might be able to utilize that counterattack, especially with a guy like Barrero. Again, his speed is absolutely phenomenal. Same with guys like DeJuan Jones, Brandon Bai. If you have an Ima Boateng coming off the bench. So the counterattack might actually, work in the Revolution's favor, and the fact that the Union might go more possession could do the same, but obviously you're taking a risk with not your first pairing at center back.
Absolutely, man. That should be a lot of fun to watch, as always, between New England and Philly. Justin, look, since the Supporter Shield win in 2020, obviously we had the upset loss in the playoffs. Last year they swept us, and this year we had a draw. Do you sense like this rivalry is kind of getting back to the New England side, and how does that make you feel going to Saturday?
I mean, I don't. I think after such a long, of the Union just flat out dominating the Revolution for a long time. Like, I'd say, the last few years, especially this year, like the Memorial Day game, the Union were coming off some injuries. It was before a 2-week international break. Last year was kind of crazy with the timing of both of the Revolution games. I mean, the second one, you had most of the team gone because of international duty, and the kids still nearly like pulled it out. Like I think the homegrowns could have absolutely won that game. Last year you had Paxton Aronson with an absolute golazo off the left foot, like, and they again still nearly won. Like I think it's obviously the Revolution have finally kind of gotten back to where they are, but I think it's kind of more of a stability after one team dominating for so long that the Revolution are now finally kind of making things more interesting again.
I could definitely only help this little rivalry we got going on between the two here. So Sam, kind of explain what went down on Saturday against NYCFC at the baseball stadium.
Oh, it was a lot. So obviously, you have Andrew Farrell give up a pen. That was his first. That was his yellow card. It was a yellow card. It was definitely a pen. It was just misjudged by Farrell. But then the second call that they had was quite possibly the worst call I've seen in my entire life. It's just an interaction that happens on every ball that's launched into the box, and absolutely blew my mind. But ball doesn't lie. You had George Petrovic make the save, so that was good. Third pen, the red card that ended up having Andrew Farrell sent off. It was a little iffy. It was up in the air, but I think after the second call, everyone was like, I don't know if we can trust this officiating. And then obviously, too, that changes the entire outlook of the game. You have the field. Everyone's slipping all over the place. Gustavo Bo was able to have a great game, so shout out to him. Same with Sebastian Lletget. He was able to assist on the first goal. So some players were able to cope with it, but talking to Henry Kessler and DeJuan Jones after the game, Kessler was talking about how the field was flat out uneven. Matt Polster was on Twitter after the match. He said, when you look at a net and you turn 180, you're supposed to see a net. That's not what happens at Yankee Stadium. And obviously, Bruce Arena was not happy. He said that someone owed the Revs an apology. I don't know who. I have no idea who you'd be talking about. But yeah, it was just an absolute chaos of a match. And as I put on Twitter, when my recap, the first 2 points I'm touching on are the refs and the field. It's not exactly a great game. So
you can blame the Yankees grounds crew.
Yeah.
She got done playing the Red Sox, man. It's tough to turn around, for a little footy action. But now, listen, we know the challenge of playing Yankee Stadium. It's got to end. It really does, man. You guys must not like NYCFC, right?
I
now.
mean, yeah,
no one does. Come on, let's be honest.
It's been rough, obviously, with how they knocked us out of the playoffs, and it just Tati can just be Tati. So there's definitely some
so annoying.
Bad blood there, and it's obviously not bad blood between these two guys, but you do have Matt Turner. Well, you did have Matt Turner and Sean Johnson, kind of those top goalkeepers in MLS. But yeah, if I to be perfectly honest, if I had to think of the Revs' number one rival right now, I'd probably say NYCFC. But depending on what happens on Saturday, maybe that changed. Maybe Henry Kessler throwing some more balls into the stands, or maybe some more cell phones are being chucked. I don't know. But yeah, just with everything that's gone down, and especially, recently, especially between the fan bases, NYCFC fans were definitely going into the mentions of Revs fans who were posting, Bruce and Lena quote, or, just complaining about Yankee Stadium, because apparently you can't complain about Yankee Stadium if you play at Gillette Stadium. So yeah, no offense to the Philly fans, but things between NYCFC and the Revs are pretty contentious right now.
Oh yeah, how many of those mentions were them just pointing to the championship, and it's like, great, you got another argument?
Yeah, and it's like
no card banner.
Yeah, credit to them. They got a bigger banner, but they probably have to take it down after every match. But no, it's they're pointing out oh, you play at your left. Oh, there's this turf, and it's some turf fields are absolutely amazing. You know, you can make fun of us playing at Gillette, but it's not as bad as like the uneven field and just the craziness that
Yeah.
is
I mean,
Yankee
at least your
Stadium.
field is actually regulation size. They literally won't let any media or anyone measure that field, and it's like there's no way that is within, like they say, it's within the parameters of what's allowable. I'm like, there is no way, like that, maybe by a yard. I'm like, that is pushing whatever whatever the measurements are.
Oh yeah, at least we can brag with that. We got a World Cup game coming to Foxborough, so that should be fun.
Hey, I mean, look, I'm not a fan of the NFL stadium, but the one thing I'm really not a fan of is playing in a freaking baseball stadium. So
Facts.
That's some
can live with
USL
that.
shit. Like that works for
Oh, for
USL.
sure.
That does not work for MLS.
I think Nashville, when they were in USL, played in a baseball stadium. If I'm not
I think
mistaken.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so look, they upgraded. Geodis Park looks beautiful, by the way,
Oh,
Nashville.
absolutely.
So
People can confirm it. It's a beautiful stadium.
NYCFC, you're on the clock, my guys. I mean, they've been on the clock for a while now.
I don't know what is it. I heard the rumor they kept talking about was like a temporary setup.
Yeah, I saw that episode for
Like
the Hooligans.
I think they said like again the logistics of getting out there would be a nightmare, but like it'd be better. Like it wouldn't be a permanent solution. It's just like, man, y'all just can't get it right, can you?
I just think that no matter what they do for a stadium, it's just not going to work well for everyone and that takes part in this. I think it's hard to make everyone happy, especially when you have to deal with New York real estate. It's a pain in the buttocks. That's for sure, man. So, all right. So, Justin, for you, my man, this is gonna be a big one here. Do you anticipate any lineup changes going into this match? Or are we going to see the A1 unit here?
Yeah, I think you're gonna see the standard lineup. Based on what I'm hearing, I think even if Jack is healthy enough, I think you put him on the bench just because you don't want to risk it. And the fact that, listen, and I said I love Stu. Stu had a phenomenal game. The fact that he agreed to stay for these couple extra games
Class
to
act.
help the Union, pending his move to Oxford United, I think that just goes to show that he's a phenomenal guy, and I absolutely believe that the team is going to give him a great send off after Saturday, and I think he'll do a good job. I think him and Jakob kind of are on the same page. That Stewart is definitely the ball winner, and kind of likes to stay at home while Jakob can kind of adventure and make those passes. You're gonna see a normal midfield. Ali, man, that Iron Man streak, he just keeps going and going and going, and as much as I can't stand Ray Hudson's hyperbolization sometimes, the one thing that him and Andres Cordero both said was that he is just he's one of the most underrated players in the league, and I think he has been an underrated his entire career. I absolutely think it's going to be that same midfield. Daniel Gazdag, another goal, MLS All-Star Game snub. I think we've talked about that. His numbers absolutely should have had him in there. Leon Flock had another solid game. I mean, he was an animal all over the field. He was genuinely, like, you saw Gregory and Mota were both just insanely frustrated, got really pissed off, and Brujo did what Brujo does and just kind of got under the skin of the attacking mids. And that, I think that's, if he does that, and with the new kind of, not fully possession, but I think the Union are now a lot more selective about playing those balls over the top. If you have that front three of Gazdag, Uwan, Carranza, you saw in the last game against the Revolution, when you can stretch that defense, there is a lot of space in behind. And I think if the Union can keep playing the way that they have, this lineup, there are going to be chances in this game. I absolutely think this could be an end-to-ender, which is not typically how Union Revolution games go.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way that these teams are shaping up, this could be a wide-open affair.
Always. You know what? For Leon Flock, look, at this point, I'm not expecting to be a technical, shuttle midfielder, who's going to score bangers. But dude, be a pain in the ass. I'll definitely take that. That's a lot of it was a lot of fun to watch him. He was doing really well last night in Fort Lauderdale. But for Sam, all right. So listen, this attack's starting to click a little bit. So what do you see the lineup being to try to combat this Union attack?
Yeah, like I said, Andrew Farrell's not going to be there, so I would expect, John Bell and Henry Kessler to be the center backs, and obviously, like you mentioned before, Dewan Jones and Brandon Bai to be those outside backs. You get Petrovic in net, so if it is an end-to-end game, you could see some great saves, obviously, between a guy like Andre Blake and Petrovic. You're gonna have Gustavo Bo up top, and then I think you're gonna have Dylan Barrero on kind of that left wing. And then, the midfield, it's kind of up in the air because, you have a lot of guys coming back from injuries. But, I definitely would expect to see someone like Matt Polster, just that holding defensive midfielder. He's been absolutely amazing. Yeah, amazing for him in that role. He suffered a head injury. Luckily, for the first time in a while, the Revolution are completely healthy, which is quite rare. And, definitely expect to probably, see whether it be Wilfred Kaptoum, Maciel, or Arne Christensen. Those guys will also probably make up the midfield. But it should be a pretty full force, a starting lineup. And, after the NYCFC game, I expect that the Revolution want to go out and get 3 points, especially, against a side like Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, man. Especially in Chester, man. It's gonna be some fireworks, and not like the ones last Friday, Justin. It's gonna be on the pitch, man. So it should be a lot of fun. All right, Justin, give us that prediction and the key for the Union to get this dub.
Yeah, I think the Union will keep this rolling. I think that, as I said, that DC game had the potential and has, at least so far to this point, kind of unlocked another aspect of the Union attack, which I think if they can keep this going, and the summer is the right time to start getting into form.
It's soccer season.
If they can keep this going, as I said, I think this could be an absolute danger for the rest of the Eastern Conference. These games are always tough. They're absolutely tenacious. I don't expect it to be a super high scoring affair. I mean, after all, the Union have now given up 14 goals in 20 games, which is one of the lowest totals through 20 games since, I believe, what was it? The I think it was like 2010.
The Galaxy.
13 goals. Like, the Union are on pace to absolutely be one of the best defenses in league history this season. I definitely see the Union coming away with 3 points, but I see it. I think I'm going to see with the same score line as we had in Miami, 2-1. Like I said, it will be end to end. I think both goalies will absolutely be tested, and it'll be interesting, as I always say, if the Union can, get in behind and they can shut down Carlos Hill, which I think to this point, his involvement since the playoff, knocking out, it's more been the supporting cast than his direct involvement. And I think if the Union can continue to keep when he gets shut down, when he gets aggravated and annoyed, you can notice it permeates through the rest of the roster and on the field. And and that kind of bad attitude can kind of, can really, just kind of shut down the attack. And if the Union can do that, if they can get under Hill's skin, I think the Union will. I think you'll see a much better, Union attack than we have in other Revolution games. But yeah, put me down for a 2-1 Union win.
2-1 Union win. Justin's got it. Nate, thank you so much for checking on in, brother. We appreciate it, man. It should be a fun one as well. All right, Sam, give us your prediction. And as always, this is a Union podcast. So what we want to know from you, what is the key for the Union to beat the Revs as the perspective of the Revs side?
I think you make a good point when it comes to kind of annoying Carlos Hill, just because in the last game we saw him punt the ball into the stands because he was so upset. So he's definitely that type of guy where he wears his emotions on his sleeves. If he's upset, you'll clearly see it. He's known for kind of going at the ref. So I definitely think that's important. But I think really, if you're able to shut down Dylan Barrero and kind of eliminate that dynamic factor on the wing, it definitely should be a solid day for Union. Fun fact, I was going to say 2-1 Union, but to be a contrarian, not take the exact one, I'll give the Revs some credit. I'll say they get a point, 1-1 draw.
It would be very Revs and Union to draw this one out again.
It definitely would.
Two really good two good clubs that are meeting up on Saturday night, and it's Eastern Conference Showdown. It's the Northeast of America. These clubs just don't like each other, no matter who it is. Red, blue, blue and red. Doesn't matter. We just don't like each other. Sam, I wanted to ask you because obviously we're in the topic of rivalries. The Revs, like, have you guys ever have you guys had a big rivalry? Because obviously you guys are an OG club, right? Like, what was the big rivalry in day one, in, like, the early parts of MLS?
Yeah, from what the elders, Seth McCumber, and everyone else from the Bent Musket tells me, I would probably have to lean towards the Red Bulls, especially if you, look at that 2014 season. I, definitely remember them going back and forth with Thierry Henry. There's rumors Thierry Henry was too scared to come play at the Gillette Turf, which I don't exactly blame him. So yeah, there's definitely some bad blood between the Red Bulls, I would say, and then also too probably DC United. But like I've kind of mentioned, they've kind of been searching for that rival. Philly has definitely made a case, especially when during that COVID year we played each other like 6 times. And then also too, NYCFC has come into the mix because obviously Boston, New York just plays well. And then also too, just the fact that they knocked us out of the playoffs after that Supporter Shield. So yeah, there's definitely been some OG rivalries, and then it's kind of transitioned to a phase where you're looking for a rival. And now it seems like things are bubbling up again, so it's kind of waiting to see what happens there.
So for you personally, like, what is the criteria for a good rival? Because obviously, I feel like the MLS has its own version of it.
Yeah, I definitely think part of the fans have to be involved with it, and there has to kind of be some bad blood there. But I think too, you have to kind of see it on the field. It's probably one of the reasons why I think Philly definitely could be a rivalry, because I'll never forget Henry Kessler chucking that ball, and I think it was Bedoya going after him and everybody, and just the whole chaos of that post game. So I definitely think there has to be a physical element. Once to give credit to the New York Red Bulls, I think they fouled the Revolution like 20 times in the game up here in Gillette. So they definitely reach that criteria. So I definitely say there has to be some animosity, not just, on the field and not just, off the field with fans. Kind of has to be a nice, blend, nice mix of those two.
All right. Should be a lot of fun. Where are you going to be watching the match on Saturday, Sam?
I am going to be up here in New England watching this North Shore, but my colleague Seth McCumber, he will be there down in Chester, as well as Revolution recap host Greg Johnstone. They're both going to the game, so you might see them out there.
All right. Well, as the legends say, we'll make sure to throw batteries at them. I'm totally kidding.
It's the Philly.
We'll toss them in the Delaware.
I was gonna say it's the Philly prophecy. So I mean, I can't blame you guys.
All good, man. Hey, listen, Sam, dude, it's always a pleasure catching up with you, especially like on a hectic week. I mean, you guys have been blessed having just one match to worry about. We got 2 freaking matches to worry about. So, Sam, we really do appreciate you coming on here, man. And one more time, Sam, can you plug in all your great work so people can find your work there?
Yeah, so definitely, make sure to check us out at the Bent Musket on Twitter. I have a bunch of stuff, whether it's be, covering the Revolution, the second team, even me and my photographer, we went up to Vermont to cover Vermont Green FC, the new club I met. Well, yeah, it was absolutely sick. It was awesome. So shout out to them. So yeah, we cover all New England sports. You can definitely find me on Twitter at Sam_Minton22. So definitely, make sure to check me out there. But guys, I really appreciate you having me on once again.
Yeah, man. Sam, I'm a little jealous. Real quick off note, Sam actually is part of. Are you still part of a Bruins podcast, right?
Yes, I am.
I'm jealous because I probably won't be talking hockey this upcoming winter. So,
hey, you got Tony DeAngelo. Have fun with that.
Oh God, no. We don't need the NHL's Jeff Cameron or
yeah.
So
yeah, there you go.
We don't need more. We don't need that in Philly. We have enough of that in Delco. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
So the way it's going to work in Philly, obviously right now it's soccer and baseball season. We're going to have football season. It's just basketball. We don't know what hockey is anymore. So that's how it's working right now.
Sounds good.
Sam, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Justin, it's always a pleasure we do another episode with your brother. Guys, thank you so much for tuning on in this episode of DOOP by the River. We'll be back again next week to break this match down and look at it our next matchup. Guys, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for all your live viewings. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, that is Sam Minton. That is Justin Pax 10 cycle instructor Friedberg Of course, I go by name El Parcero Philly, and we're telling you guys to dupe on.